what's up?
Garlic flavored bread needs no introduction. I can say confidently that pretty much everybody watching this video loves it. Today, I'm going to show you two very different but very good ways to make it. The first is a more lively variation on the classic Italian-American restaurant version. To get started, I'll grab my food processor and then I'll grab 2 sticks or 230 grams of butter and then grate them on the largest hold sides of my box grater. This butter is cold and right out of the fridge because I'm assuming a lot of people watching this video will be in the situation of wanting garlic bread as soon as possible but won't want to wait the hour it takes for it to get soft. Instead, grating it on the box grater exponentially increases its surface area and makes it room temperature almost immediately. Then for the garlic part of this garlic bread, I've got 25 grams or roughly 8 to 10 large garlic cloves here, and I'm going to press them with my garlic press as opposed to just putting them in the food processor whole. In my experience, the garlic never really gets fully broken down that way and leaves you with large chunks of nearly raw garlic in your bread. Next, I'll grab a bunch of parsley and give it a rough chop. This is curly, but flat leaf would also work here, and in total I need about 25 grams. Next, I'm gonna add in some optional herbage. That's a sprig of rosemary. If you have it, just zip off the leaves and throw those in. Then 5 to 6 sprigs of fresh thyme. I'll zip that off and then add in 3 grams of dried oregano, 3 grams of black pepper, a strong pinch of chili flakes, 3 grams of salt, and then 75 grams of extra virgin olive oil. Oil and butter might seem redundant, but the oil helps loosen things up inside the food processor so that we can get a much smoother, more uniform puree. Now the lid goes on and I'm going to spin this for as long as it takes for things to get stuck. At some point the butter is going to creep up the sides of this thing and stop spinning. So at that point I'll pop off the top, push it all back down, and then continue to hit this on high speed until everything is well broken down and there are no longer large chunks of herbs or garlic visible. And there we go, a super flavorful herby garlic butter that smells like Italian food meets escargot. Now, to sort out the bread part of this garlic bread, I made 2 of the French rolls from my Italian beef video. If you want some full detailed process on how exactly to make them, I'll link to that video in the description. And if you don't have this specific bread on hand or don't want to make it, most grocery stores sell something that is maybe a little bit less good, but pretty close in terms of form factor. Next, I'm going to give this entire loaf a flat, even slice in half, and then I'll lay it out on a sheet tray. From there, I'll slather about half of that herby garlic butter spread out evenly between both slices of bread. And be generous here. This isn't the time to skimp, you guys. Just make sure to get that butter spread from edge to edge and pressed into any large holes or crevices. Once the butter is smeared all over this bread, I'm going to grab some nice aged Parmesan cheese. This is some 18-month parm that has been ground into a fairly large pebble texture, as you can see. That's better for this than pure cheese dust, in my opinion. So if you can find it, go for something that has some nice age on it and is chunky like this. I'll drop a few strong handfuls of that onto each side of the bread and then load it into the oven. Wait a minute, I'm gonna move these over onto some aluminum foil first. That's the pro move. The cheese isn't gonna burn onto the tray this way. Now into a 475F oven it goes to bake for 10 to 15 minutes. Once the bread is dark and crispy around the edges and the cheese is past the bubble stage and into the browning stage, it's time to pull this out. As you can see, these are brilliantly toasted around the edges and the garlic butter cheese mixture has fried up and settled into the top of this bread perfectly. You know it's done when you can confidently lift the entire slab up without any flop. If your bread is bendy or soft, that needs to go back into the oven for some more heat. To serve it, I'll cut this boat of butter and garlic into nice large chunks. Each side of the bread should give you 4 to 6 pieces, but in reality that's only like a portion for one person. I personally ate this entire half by myself, and while I'm not proud, I am very full and happy. To gild the lily here, I'm going to hit this bread with some additional unmelted aged Parmesan and then a little bright fresh olive oil to make things that much more silky and rich. Now we've achieved what I think is peak garlic bread. It's simultaneously soft and crunchy, but not greasy. It's herbaceous, unctuous, salty, and even a little bit spicy, and overall just an easy to make, pure hedonistic delight, and I think you should indulge in it sometime soon. Next is a somehow breadier version of garlic bread. I'm calling these pull-apart Parmesan garlic knots. They're crispy on the top and bottom and fluffy, soft, and bready throughout. To get started, I'll grab my stand mixer and combine 180 grams of warm water, 10 grams of instant yeast, 15 grams of olive oil, 5 grams of sugar, 280 grams of bread flour, and then 9 grams of salt. The dough hook goes on and I'll mix this for 6 minutes on high speed. By the way, this is just a stand mixer version of the 1-hour pan pizza dough that I showed you guys a few weeks ago. This time it's sans beer because there's a lot going on garlic wise and we don't need it. And I'm also using the stand mixer over my hand because it's easier. After 6 minutes, this dough should be clear in the bowl and slap it around like this. So to verify gluten's success, I'm gonna lift the hook and give it a tug. No tearing, no shearing, so we're good. To save an additional dish and just to keep things simple, I'm gonna leave the dough where it is in the stand mixer bowl and just cover it with the lid. 60 minutes later, you can see this dough has more than doubled in size and it's very gassy. So I'm gonna flip it out on my cutting board and then degas it a little bit so it's not so flabby. Then using my dough scraper, I'm gonna cut the dough in half, then I'll cut those halves into thirds, then I'll cut those thirds in half. No need to get the scale out to do anything specific here. We just need 12 random sized pieces of dough like this. I'll scoot these off to the side and then I'll grab a piece to knot up. To do that, I'll degas again, then roll towards myself, and then using my palms, I'll roll it out into a very rustico cigar shape. Next, I'll just give that thin piece of dough a quick single knotting like this. I'll roll it once to seal it up, and there we go. That's a dough knot. Once all these doughs are tied up, I'm gonna make the thing that transforms them into garlic knots. That's a very flavorful fried garlic butter. For that, I'll grab a little saucepan and into it add 50 grams or about 3 tablespoons of butter, a short little squeezer of olive oil, about 15 grams, then 25 grams of minced garlic, 3 to 4 sprigs of minced fresh thyme, 1 sprig of minced fresh rosemary, 20 grams of chopped parsley, 3 grams of dried oregano, a small pinch of chili flake, maybe a little bit more. And once everything's in the pot, I'm gonna move it over to the stove and bring it up over medium-high heat. As soon as the butter is starting to melt, I'm gonna give this thing a stir to get things fried up and to cook off that garlic's raw edge. In total, I'm probably gonna cook this for about 60 to 90 seconds or until the garlic is smelling super fragrant, delicious, and handsome like I do when wearing Scentbird, the sponsor of this video. Scentbird is a monthly fragrance subscription that delivers new scents to your door monthly. Traditionally, I thought of fragrance as the pungent musk of puberty that I associate with Axe body spray after gym class, but since then I've come to really like scents that are more subtle, more natural, and less desperate smelling. With Scentbird, you can choose from all of your favorite brands, or if you're like me and don't know what you like yet, you can take a quiz to tell them what you naturally gravitate towards. I'd say they did great with my matches too. I got Skylar Sunshower, that smells like spring meadow, Heretic's Dirty Grass, that smells like grassy violet leaf and not dirt, Sandalwood Sacre by Le Jordan Retrouve, nailed the pronunciation. I've been to France. I also really like that with Scentbird I was able to choose all clean fragrances without parabens or phthalates. So to try Scentbird, click the link below and use my code Brian55 for 55% off your first month at Scentbird. That's only about $8 for your first month. I'm also excited to share that Scentbird is now available in Canada. So don't you guys think it's a boot frickin' time to use code Brian55 for 55% off? The link is in my description. Thank you, Scentbird. As soon as this garlic is just barely hinting at taking on some color, I'm gonna kill the heat and let it cool down for 4 to 5 minutes. If the butter is still hot when we add it to the knots, things will get gluey. Once it's no longer super hot, I'll add it into the bowl. And by the way, I tossed these knots with just a little bit of flour before I started making the butter so that they wouldn't stick together. Next, in goes a strong handful of that pebbly Parmesan cheese, and then I'll jump into the bowl to toss everything to combine. And don't worry about degassing anything here. We're gonna give these another rise in just a second. When the knots are glistening with garlicky herb butter like this, I'll grab an 8x8 brownie pan, hit it with a hit of pan spray, and then load in all 12 of my greased up knots. By the way, I really prefer a metal pan for this over glass because glass just won't get hot enough to fry and crisp up the bottom of the dough. Once my knots are snugged up in the pan, I'm gonna grab the same 18-month Parmesan cheese that I used before and then sprinkle a very generous amount on top. At least half a cup here. Don't be shy on the parm. From there, I'm gonna proof these knots or let them get gassier. So to do that, I'll cover the pan with a lid and then preheat my oven to 450F. The knots should be well risen by the time the oven is ready. 20 to 30 minutes later, I've got a hot oven and a pan full of gassed up buttery knots. So I'll load them in and bake them hot for 12 to 15 minutes or until they're browning real hard on top and then I can see some fried edges along the side of the pan. When I pull these out to take a closer look, you can see that, yeah, they look sick as hell. We've got some fried herbage on top, some melty brown parm all over everything. And now to make them that much more crazy, I'm gonna brush the top down with a little melted garlic butter to drive home the point that this is indeed garlic bread. Once these have cooled off for 2 to 3 minutes, I'm gonna slide them onto my cutting board so that I can give them the proper pull apart. These things are crazy. They're part focaccia, part pizza, part Parker House roll, and also undoubtedly garlic bread. The center is fluffy, light, and super soft, while the outside is crispy, fried, and completely saturated with buttery garlic flavor. Just like the first version, this one is a great companion to a table full of red sauce and spaghetti, but would also be a really fun appetizer to serve along some salami and cheese and maybe a little chilled white wine. You guys get the picture. Garlic bread is sick and everyone on earth loves it. So give yourself the easy win and make yourself some soon. Let's eat this thing.